What is up? Firing off some 200 zone. The plan is to play for about an hour and a half. To be honest, I'm already down about 4 buy-ins today from an earlier session, so I may call it quits early if I start tilting, but the plan now is to play for an hour and a half. We'll see how it goes. Standard 3-bet with the 5-4 suited. Pretty funny that villain had 7 deuce off, or the 4-5 suited. Facing a 3-bet with 9s here. I think we mainly want to be 4-bet or folding. I think I'm going to fold, given that the small blind should be pretty tight in that formation. I think the pool in general is probably under 4-betting there. They're going to still have hands like ace queen, ace jack suited, but I don't think they're 4-betting or 3-betting. They're like king queen suiteds, queen jack suited's enough to warrant a call. Calling also sucks, being out of position versus the button, so I'm okay folding there. Let's see what the ranges say. Yeah, 9s is like calling half the time, which it sounds about right. And these are, I think, on the looser side for me, so I'm mainly just folding there. 8-7 suited, I think we can mix in a 3-bet sometimes. I'm just going to call, given the price. Mainly we want to be 3-betting the lower suited connectors for balance, so that we have good board coverage when we squeeze. And that's like less of a factor in anonymous games. So I'm perfectly okay just like not where my squeezing range isn't as balanced as it could be. I'm going to start off with a c-bet, about half pot on this board. I'm facing another squeeze. Yeah, I mean our hand's too weak to 4-bet. We could consider calling with the button being a fish, but ace-3 suited is pretty weak. I'm gonna take a fluffing position here. Jack 10-5 suited. I think both players should hit this board pretty hard. We have some ace jack, ace 10 suited. I still think his checking range is pretty protected, and we're basically flipping against, yeah, like ace king, ace queen hands, so I'm not really all that thrilled to start turning 4s into a bluff. Flopping a straight here, going for the check raise. I think I'm still going to go, I think I'm just going to start betting because I don't think he's going to be able to bet call. And here we're mostly just giving up. May stab on the river. Yeah, I think I'm going to stab on the river. I don't think enough king x checks enough. Hopefully he folds like 9s through 6s, maybe some 10x, so I expect a lot of his like 2 pairs to pick this off. But I think a lot of his 2-pair combos are going to bet the turn anyway, so it kind of feels like the villain might be unprotected. I don't know, just the feeling there. Either way, I think we should be bluffing a lot when villain is playing that passively. King 6. Mostly playing 1/3 c-bet strategy on paired boards. even as the small blind out of position, I think that's completely fine. We should have a pretty big advantage on this board anyway. I think like queen 9 off is like near the bottom of our opening range here. Yeah, just gonna start with the 1/3 c-bet. Barreling on any high card and then any card where we pick up equity. Yeah, so a king is a pretty good card to barrel on. In terms of picking 3-barrel bluffs, this might be a good candidate, where we block king queen. Yeah, I think once the 6 comes, we should be bluffing a lot less. We also have a decent amount of showdown value with queen high now, so I think when we bet the river, we're basically targeting ace highs to fold, and I don't know if ace high even folds. Obviously a boat is never folding blind versus blind. Interesting bet. I don't think... yeah, I'm just gonna fold. Having a 9 is kind of bad for bluff catching. I was considering raising, but who knows. Ace Jack 9 board, we should probably be betting a pretty polar range. I'm going to check this back. King high has a little bit of showdown value. Yeah, an easy fold on the turn. Even though this 3-bet is a slightly bigger size, I'm still going to call. Basically just like never folding, cut off first button. 3-bet. I think these ranges are super wide. Pretty good board. I'm not sure if we want to start with a check raise. Here, I'm gonna be c-betting small with our entire range. Cool, so obviously calling over here. I think once he checks the flop, I think we can still trap. Okay, this is a very interesting spot. Obviously we have better hands to continue with. I'm just gonna check. Hopefully he has the ace of hearts. Yeah, I was not expecting an overbet there. I think I'm gonna go pretty big. Uh, 9-8 off is basically bottom of our opening range. Kinda sucks that the 7 of hearts makes a straight flush, but so like it's kind of hard for ace of hearts to call. However, I mean we're still raising anyway. I'm not just complaining that it might be hard to get called by worse. Versus a min raise is pretty tempting to call. I think I'm gonna do it. So when there's 2 low cards on the board, the big blind has more hands that connect on this board. I think I'm going to just start with a check call. Let me pick up additional equity. A 10-3 deuce board. I think we want to be checking a fair amount, or just be a little more careful with our c-betting frequencies. I think I'm going to put this as a check. We get there. We should be bluffing a lot on this run out, so I think I'm going to overbet. on Villain leads, I think it's a pretty easy call. Third gut shot in 2 overs. Still beating hands like 4-5, 5-6, 9-8. Cool, so big blind led for 2/3 on a card that was slightly better for my range. I think once the jack pairs, ace king, in terms of showdown value, is like really high up in range. But yeah, easy check back here. Yeah, I'm surprised he bet a 10 for that sizing. Over here, going to just bet big. I think that on like Queen Jack X, we don't want to be betting a lot of our marginal hands. So we can start using a larger sizing, especially on Queen high boards. Obviously it's much better if it's like Queen mid-low or something, but we should still have a big enough advantage where we can bet big. Um, 8-5 deuce board. I think ace king is a pretty easy check. We can bet a lot of our flush draws, backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw hands. I think king, we are going to be perceived to be betting this card a lot. So we can use a smaller big size. I'm going to size up with a double flush draw. A pretty easy check on the left table. This is a pretty annoying spot. We lose to 8x. I think I'm gonna just bet fold. Hope that villain has a king, or maybe he's getting sticky with a deuce. Check call on the left, and the 3 completes the flush. Cool. So I think we're too high up in range to turn our hand into a bluff. We still beat villain's worst 10x that stabbed the flop, as well as some air. So yeah, just unfortunate to run into an ace. Yeah, we got called by pocket 3s on the 8-5 deuce, king 8 run out. So guess it was a good value bet. And we are repping kind of thin, I think. And the king on the turn is... Yeah, I think actually in hindsight, ace king is like way up in our value range. Or like not way up, but it's up there. Most monotone top flops, especially ace-high monotone flops, are pretty bad. Not bad, but the equities are a lot closer, so we should be checking back a lot. This hand naturally wants to check anyway. I think once villain checks to us again, we have a pretty mandatory bet. I'm gonna bet about half pot. Mostly targeting worse pairs, flush draws, straight draws, yada yada. Pretty clear defend with ace 10 off, cutoff versus big blind. Queen 7 3 board. Expect cutoff to be c-betting at a pretty high frequency. Depending on sizing, I may just float one here. Yeah, so we're gonna float one out of position. Turn an ace. We got pretty lucky there, so basically never check folding. I still expect the cutoff to be betting a fair amount on this ace. So he overbets, which is probably not a thing, honestly. He probably should be range betting small, I think. I mean, either way, we have a pretty easy call. Jack is an interesting card. Going to check. He should have some like 6-5s. Like the lower straight draws should be tripling off there, I think. So he had king jack off with the king of clubs, and he turned a gutter. So yeah, I think that turn over bet is like not a good bet in terms of like theory wise. I don't think the ace is like, it's not like turn ace is not always a good card for the pre-flop raiser because the big blind is check calling a lot of aces and the cutoff is not c-betting a lot of aces, or like depending on the c-betting strategy, but like yeah, they should be checking some of their strong aces. So if you're not betting ace king on the flop, you can't rep ace king on the turn essentially. Okay, so 8-8-3 suited board. The opener, who's the hijack, is short stacked. I could consider leading. Okay, this is weird. Small blind flatted out of the... He flats out of the small blind, so that's like pretty indicative of a fish. I'm thinking if our hand can call twice. I think it can. Okay, so I think value betting this hand is probably too thin versus turn sizing. Yeah, he just had a straight draw. King high. Obviously calling if we had a gut shot, but not calling there. What did he have? 5-6? 5-6 suited? Okay, so reasonable hand to call with as a recreational player out of the small blind. Yeah, starting to see a trend that people are betting big with bluffs. Especially in a spot where value is like really narrow. Tempting to 3-bet this, but I'm gonna stay disciplined and fold. I'm actually going to cold call this with the fish in the big blind. And he folds. Okay, ace 5 deuce board. Depending on what the cutoff expects my flatting range to look like. Yeah. Okay, that's no fun. I guess we just fold. We are still protected there with like suited aces that flat, hoping to play with the big blind if we are worried about protection. So like 6s is just a slam dunk fold, even though we do have like a backdoor straight draw possibilities. I think even multi-way, I would be c-betting this pretty high frequency. I think I would start checking sometimes, but um, obviously with this hand, pretty easy c-bet. Small blind flats. I expect small blind's range to be, I mean, obviously tighter than the big blinds. In terms of hands that continue, I'm not really sure. I think with this hand specifically, we can check and call on break runouts. Yeah, now value betting, hoping to get called by medium to small pocket pairs. Think we can size up a little bit. A little worried about value owning myself, yeah. Oh well, that's gonna happen sometimes. But like, I'm not checking a lot of better nines, and he should be leading some of his nines himself, and that's like specifically 9, 10, and Jack 9 are like the nines that we lose to. So it kind of sucks to like run into those, like that specific hand. Is that 9, 10 off? Man, these people are really out of line pre-flop. Multi-way defend, I would really like to continue. However, yeah, it's just going to be tough to navigate multi-way. Just going to check this down and hope to get to showdown. Let's go for it. Versus the short stack. Ace jack off, I think, is a mixed frequency 3-bet cutoff. Small blind versus cutoff. Probably folding more versus 3x, but what can you do? 7-3 deuce, we should have a pretty big advantage. I would bet if we had a backdoor straight draw, but ace jack, I think it's just a give up. And hopefully he gives us a free turn. Cool, so with the ace of spades, we block a lot of his continues on the turn. A 10 is a decent card blocking jack 10, so I'm going to bet. Cool, so the flush completes. We have the ace of spades. I'm gonna bet on this side as well. So I think we're just gonna jam. Bluffing a fish is dangerous, but we have the right blockers. Hopefully he gives us credit. On the 4 flush board, when villain checks to us, I think that check is somewhat unprotected. And we also have like, obviously still have 2 overs and a lot of chop equity versus his pairs. So once, if it comes 5 diamonds, then you know we're chopping against a lot of his pairs. So I think we are allowed to bet pretty aggressively. Just making it difficult for villain to realize equity, and also we should have plenty of hands, like 1 diamond hands that check the flop. Pretty standard 4-bet here. 4-betting a lot of my offsuit broadways. Pretty easy c-bet with gut shot and the ace of heart blocker. So going to use a small size. I think we can actually rip this flop, considering it. I think I'm going to do it. This hand serves well. On the 10 of diamonds turn, I think we can barrel sometimes, but kind of timed out, so I'm going to check. And I would have bluffed heart rivers. I think We can get like 4 and 5s to fold. It's like hard to represent anything in a bet check bet line, so I'm just going to give it up. Like most queens are going to be betting the turn anyway, so it's like hard. It's much easier to get a one of the like a 4 or 3 to fold on the turn than on the river, I think. Jack 9-5. Yeah, we should be betting somewhat polar, right? I think I'm gonna do it. Queen 9 multi-way. I think with the 9. Yeah, I think we can mix in a raise with the 8 sometimes. Yeah, 5 is like a really good turn card for the big blind. Just have an easy fold. It's considering if a7 suit is even a good c-bet there. Okay, so facing a small blind flat. Interesting that he's got a big stack, but he's flatting from the small blind. Maybe a fish on a heater. 8-5-4 actually smacks the small blind flatting range. However, we still have backdoor flush draw on 2 overs, so I'm going to start with a c-bet on the smaller side. I think we should be a little cautious here. Both players can have 6-7 and sets, but he's going to just have a more concentrated range that interacts with this board. Yeah, and obviously giving up here when we don't turn the backdoor flush. And yeah, just like hoping to get the showdown at this point. Yeah, not much to say. Limp pot 744. I think we can stab here sometimes. Kind of sucks that he's a little shorter. I think we can defend sometimes 100 big blinds deep, but I'm gonna fold this time. I think we can 3-bet this low frequency. Let's check. Yeah, king 6 off. We don't want to be getting too out of line c-betting ace high flops. We definitely have like multiple ways to improve, but yeah, which I would bet if I had a spade on the flop. On the turn, yeah, we just don't have any equity, so I'm just going to check. So can we get villain to fold worse? I think we can. Targeting mostly queen high and jack highs here. Or, yeah, king or queen highs. I don't think any pair folds on the river. Pretty easy to defend here. Nope, nope, not defending. I think we can 3-bet that at some frequency. Nope, just outside of our 3-betting range. So obviously defending versus big blind 3-bet. I think I'm going to be calling here a lot and 4-betting very little. Ace 10 is just smack middle of our calling range. We do have backdoor straight, backdoor flush draw. If the big blind is 3-betting somewhat appropriately, he should connect pretty hard on this board because he should have a lot of like the lower suited connectors. However, I think he still has enough air to warrant a call. He should still have like king, queen, queen, jack, king, jack, whatever. Yep, obviously continuing on a club turn. Basically calling any size other than a shove. Top set on a somewhat connected board. I think I'm gonna start with a c-bet. I think the villain should be calling pretty wide. And I think I'm gonna check this back. Cool, running hot. I was considering betting this hand if we can get villain to fold his ace king, ace queen, ace jacks. Still gonna continue here. Gonna size up for a river shove. 6, 5, 4. So 4-liner. I think I'm just going to shove, and hopefully villain has like a misplayed like, I don't know, overpair. Okay. Slow roll? No, that's not slow roll. So villain value owns himself with king jack. Who knows what these people are thinking, man? But villain leads pot on a 4 of clubs river, completing the front door flush. I have to imagine that he is bluffing, hoping to get me to fold king queen or ace king, but who knows? Thank you for the donation. I wish he would have had more to start the hand, but oh well. Can't ask for everything, right? I think either way, betting top set there without the king of clubs is kind of necessary. Even with the king of clubs, like the king and the 10 being on the board, villain's range, both, like we should have enough bluffs. We should also be, Villain should also have a lot of like bet or like check raises on the turn. So I don't think it's a spot where we need to slow play. Maybe we can check like the queen 9 combos that we decided to 3-bet or something. I don't know. I will look into how I'm constructed on the turn later in that spot because I'm curious what good hands are to check the turn to call a river bet. Bottom pair, pretty easy check. We can c-bet sometimes with the backdoor flush draw, but decided to check. I think I'm going to check again. We don't want to get check raised off our equity, even though we can just bet call with this hand. Facing a pot-sized river bet, I'm not exactly thrilled. We still have some like 10x. I don't think... Yeah, I mean, we only need to be good a third of the time, but Villain was bluffing, why wouldn't they just bet the turn, right? I don't know, that's a spot where I'm pretty unfamiliar, and I still have better hands on the river. So I'm just gonna fold bottom pair. Tempting to 3-bet this or 4-bet this, but I'm gonna stay disciplined and fold. I mean, there's just no way it's a 4-bet, but open ender, backdoor flush draw. I think you can play this hand any way you want. Big bet, small bet, check raise. I think I'm just going to bet big. Four of spades is likely one of the worst, if not the worst. No, 10 or 9 would be worse. Either way, I think I'm going to slow down. Check. Likely check calling, as we still beat 8-7. Some club draws. I think we have a little bit too much equity to fold now. And hopefully our queen high is good. And that villain just gives up. That is an interesting bet. Obviously not gonna call. Villain can be bluffing worse, like king queen, king jack. Yeah, maybe that turn call needs to be a turn check raise. Because, yeah, I don't know. That whole line by villain is very suspicious. I have a hard time imagining that villain takes this line with a 10. C-bet 3/4, villain calls. On a turn 4, I check call 2/3. Yeah, I mean, I guess villain has enough bluffs to use the sizing. And obviously, I mean, it's easy to say he doesn't have enough value, but he has like infinite 4x. Blind versus blind. I just like don't know what hands I would protect that I would call the river bet with. With the Jack of Hearts, I'm actually going to check this. Check again. Gonna bet over here. Pretty hard to go for a check raise now that it's been checked through twice, so I'm just gonna bet. And no value bet over here as well. Not gonna go too big. Cool, missed out on a lot of value. The villain has top pair also, but gonna 3-bet on the smaller side. Where's a short stack? It's close. It's really close. I think I am gonna go bet. Hopefully the fish has enough worse ace-x. And he should still have like plenty of flush draws too. Versus 3x. I think I can go either way. I'm going to call because I'm kind of on a heater and wanted to do a heat check, and here we are. I think once Villains checks, he's going to be pretty showdown driven. So that range is going to have a hard time calling a check raise, so I'm just going to start doing the betting myself. I have a hard time that Villain is going to start bluffing on an ace turn. And then on this river, I think I'm going to value overbet to target a king. And with king queen off, pretty standard 4-bet. Villain uses a pretty big sizing, which kind of sucks, but what can you do? I missed the action over here. I'm assuming Villain folded. Okay, pretty easy squeeze spot. I would consider calling if the big blind was a fish, but like ace 10 suited, like 9s and 8s specifically are like good flatting hands, but we can also just play a simplified strategy of 3-bet or fold. Okay, since we're a little deeper, I'm going to use a larger 3-bet size. And the big blind cold calls, also pretty deep. Okay, so pretty easy check, multi-way in position. Just happy to realize equity here. And hopefully bink. Versus a limp, gonna raise on the larger size. I think depending on sizing. Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, if there's ever a spot to fold jacks pre-flop, this is probably it. I mean, like, we need... Yeah, we only have 10 out there. I'm gonna call. I think my overs are live. My gut shot is live. The king is not... I think I'm going to call a medium-sized bet. I'm going to fold if Villain bombs the river. Yeah, this sucks. This sucks. This sucks. This sucks. This sucks. What are Villain's bluffs? Like, Ace Jack got there. Yeah, I think I have a hard time finding bluffs on that board, unless he's turning like Jack 10. pocket jacks, pocket nines into a bluff, which I don't think he does. And the king is such a good card for my range that like feels like a spot where they're just not going to be bluffing. Like he shouldn't, because we can still have ace jack. I don't know. We also still have like king 10. Okay, weird spot. I actually wouldn't mind calling. I'm gonna bet this turn. I'm gonna lead. I'm going to just 4-bet anyway. I'm just gonna treat this as a call. Okay, snap call, snap check. Either way. Still a c-bet here. Going to go about 1/3. Pretty gross if he raises, but I think I'm going to call 1 versus raise and evaluate turn. Cool, he calls. The jack, he should connect with the jack sometimes. Our hand can go either way. We can block the turn to check back river, or we can check the turn to allow villain to bluff. I think I'm going to check. Yeah, and pretty easy bluff catch if villain decides to bet. It's pretty nice blocking jack 10. Like obviously he still has like a lot of queen jack, king jack, ace jack, but he should also still have a lot of like ace high floats, king high floats. So, yep, nice. Surprised he didn't 4-bet ace king, but how can you predict what this crazy pool is gonna do? Yeah, now that I think about this hand, I'm actually a little unsure. 200 big blinds deep. I think this is just a pure call. Hijack versus button. Yeah, a little too weak to 3-bet. Too strong to fold. It's only a 3x sizing. All good reasons to just call. Tempting to float this flop, but I think our hand is a little too weak. Would float king high diamonds, king high clubs. Yeah, this hand is just a little too weak. So my raise here is going to look very strong when the cutoff or the hijack is a short stack. I think with the queen of clubs we're going to want to bet. Blocking villain's bluffs. Mostly targeting ace x, jack x, any draw really. I think if villain had any piece of equity, they're just pot committed, likely shoving the flop versus a small bet. Pretty easy to defend on the right. Pretty easy 3-bet on the. Did I say on the right? On the left. I would float here if I had a diamond, but I think this would just be a fold if they bet. Yeah, I'm just gonna fold. The big blind cold calls. I wouldn't mind two-streeting this hand just to like stack ace queen, so I'm just gonna do that. It's probably not good theory-wise, but screw it. It's kind of greedy, and villain can like play pretty easily if they have like a pocket pair or something. But I think like either way when I bet, it's going to look really strong. So I think a lot of our hands that bet are just going to want to stack off anyway, and it's going to just be like strong draws and strong ace-x. There is like an argument for just like checking ace-king there, but especially with the king of clubs. I don't know. Maybe it's worth looking into. Um, hmm. Yeah, I think versus fish, I'm just going to start raising now. A little bit on the smaller sizing since we're shorter stack and like, yeah, there's just like not too much to play for, so we should have no trouble getting it in. Just picking a sizing that we can get SPR to about 1 on the river. Cool. Kind of sucks that the 8 is not a heart, so if he had like 8x of hearts, he got there, but I think our hand is too good to check back. Hopefully he has like an overpair, worse Jack X, maybe a sticky 8x. And he had King 8. So yeah, sticky 8x. 8 with a good kicker. No good. And yeah, on a Jack 8, I'm sure he assumes that we have enough bluffs with 9-10, like Queen 10, Queen 9, a lot of straight draws that check raise the flop and barrel off on the turn. But I think by the time the backdoor flush comes in, we're going to have a hard time finding natural bluffs. Maybe if we had like, I guess we can have like offsuit straight draws with a heart that find a bluff. So we do have some, but I think multi-way. I guess with the short stack we can start leveraging stacks with the short stack early. So like if we bet big, it looks really strong, and villain might start folding 9x. But I think my default here is just to check. Once it checks through, okay, this is pretty interesting. I think I'm going to raise. I want to deny equity versus this guy, and if he has like a big club, I think I'm just going to shove. So I mainly just want to get this guy to fold a big club, and I'm going for like a thin merge value raise versus the fish. Pretty sad we didn't get stacks in there. Pretty tempting to call. I would call if it was a smaller open size because of the short big blind, but I'm gonna fold. I raise under the gun, hijack short stack op. Yeah, this is like super strong. I would probably play like a 3-bet or 4-bet or fold strategy here. Likely just never calling, probably raising like jacks plus, maybe 10s plus. Gonna take a quick break. pretty standard defend versus 3x. I think it's close to the bottom of our defense range, but pretty hard to fold a suited one gapper. I think I'm gonna go for the check raise. We can check raise or overbet. Actually, I think I'm gonna go for the overbet. Once he checks on a king high board, this board is really good for impositions range. So his check range is going to be very showdown driven. 2 is like the not worst river to bluff. I mean, we can get like, yeah, I just don't think 9x is going to fold. That sucks that, yeah. So the reason why I decided to bet the turn myself is because I don't expect villain to bet the turn enough with their marginal hands. The reason being that they should expect me to check raise a pretty high frequency there, so they don't want to be just like betting. Where is that hand? Whatever. I don't expect them to bet the turn because they should expect me to check raise, so I decided to bet myself, basically. I think this hand can go either way. I think I'm gonna call. I think I would 3-bet like king jack suited. After the initial razor checks, yeah, that would have been a tough spot if the cutoff would have bet. Versus fish. Yeah, let's play. We get a terrible board and villain checks. I think with a diamond we can consider bluffing. But here I think we have a pretty easy call. Sucks being in the middle, but yeah, on this river we can just like never fold. It's even like tempting to consider leading, hoping to get called by queen x. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it. I don't think that villain bluffs enough for us to check call enough, and I think a queen might call more often than bluffing. I think what happens a lot of the times is that they just like stab turn and give up river a lot. I do think it's like really rare that someone would stab the turn and follow through on the river, especially on like I don't want to say it's a scary river, but I think the king is like, it's a river that it's hard to rep because they're not going to be value betting their queens. With the backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, we could probably see bet, but gonna be a little cautious multi-way. And yeah, once we check the flop, I don't think we can bet on the 8 turn. I think, yeah, I'm just going to assume that this player is going to be too sticky. I don't know. Maybe I can bluff at some point, but it's like so, it's like you just never know there, so there's just like no way of knowing. Gonna go for the low frequency 3-bet here. Can easily just fold, but 200 big blinds deep, we can start expanding. Ace King 8, I think this is a decent hand to c-bet. We have some backdoor straight possibilities. We can go crazy on a 7 or a 6. Ace Ace 4. I think our hand, if we start betting, we're going to have to turn into a bluff. Yeah, I'm just gonna check. Defending the big blind versus an under the gun open. Okay, so king, like both players should have a lot of king x. I expect a lot of his pairs to bet. Yeah, I'm in like unknown territory on like an ace-ace board. Defending with a king of clubs versus a 1/3 c-bet. I think I'm going to continue again. And yeah, I think we just check this down and hopefully, I mean, it's hard to imagine that we win, so I guess we have to bet to hopefully get better pocket pairs to fold. And we can like bet a king x, a lot of king x for value here. I'm going to continue for one more. Yeah, I like my bluff there. I think we can size up the river a little bit. Because I think I would size up my kings. Yeah, like half pot, he's getting such a good price to bluff catch. I should still have some like weak ace x, some I think king x can also be greedy and go really really big. Like not really big, but like 2/3. Yeah, I think my river bluff sizing was not good there. Once villain checks the flop and checks the turn, I think his range is going to be a lot of pocket pairs. I think it's hard to know for sure, but that's kind of what it feels like. Okay, with queen high, I think we have a little bit of showdown value. We can start stabbing a lot worse. With top set, I'm going to c-bet. Obviously we can slow play this, but I don't know, small blind's range should interact with that board somewhat. I'm gonna call once, and I may bluff raise the river with the queen of hearts. I think once villain checks, I think we're good enough to check back. Yeah, once we start betting king high, we're basically trying to get pairs to fold. Like maybe that pair folds, but yeah, maybe we should be bluffing once the flush comes in. We do have a lot. I don't know. We do have a ton of worse hands to bluff with. I'm going to 3-bet this. Facing a donk, I just like call my entire range versus a donk bet, and we'll raise the turn. Goes for large sizing, which is concerning, but what can you do? I'm gonna go 3x and probably follow through on rivers. Facing a raise here is very strange. I think with the backdoor flush draw we have to continue. Yeah, and this is, I mean, we still have a lot of flushes in our range, so it's not like the draw completing, the flush draw completing, the button gets to go ham on this turn card. Yeah, so we have infinite better bluff catchers. We're still uncapped. We still have like pocket jacks, sub 8x. So yeah, this is an easy fold. Like trigger happy, want to 3-bet everything, but I'm gonna call this time. Queen jack 7, I think you can use all kinds of c-betting strategies on this board. Yeah, I think a big size is a pretty standard one. With backdoor flush, backdoor straight, I think we have to continue with this combo. Queen is possibly a card we can lead on, but I would rather lead on lower pairing cards. Our ace high does gain some showdown value though, which is nice. At this point, having the 9 sucks, so I think it's a pretty easy fold. I would have continued the turn if we picked up equity, but yeah, that's that. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up the session. After this orbit, pretty easy to defend with king 5. I think I can check raise some. King jack, king 10, king queen, but yeah, king 5 is a pretty easy call. And obviously continuing once we turn more equity. Yeah, expect this range. So this is a really good card for my range because we have more 2 pairs, and I guess the straights are pretty much the same. So I don't expect button to be barreling at too high of a frequency. I mean, in theory he shouldn't be, but regardless. The backdoor flush completing really sucks. Yep, oh well, what can you do? It was like kind of tempting to lead the river, but I think our hand is too strong. Leading like 4-5 with a 5 of hearts, I don't even think. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to have a heart, offsuit heart hand. That's like a good river lead. Whatever. Hope you enjoyed the session.